Hey, everybody. Hope everybody is doing good today. I appreciate y'all coming out and joining me. Let's get a little bit of music out here while we wait for some additional people to come on. So today is going to be another great show. I have a wonderful guest. Let's get those comments going. Misty, Mrs. Wayne, hello, welcome. Jason, hello. We'll give it a couple minutes, let everybody jump in. All right. Jim, how are you? Hopefully everybody's had a great Thanksgiving weekend. All right, just kind of getting some stuff set up. Okay. Let's see, who else we got out here? Ron Wayne, how are you? Did you have a great weekend? Hopefully everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving, ate lots of food. I have a great guest tonight, somebody near and dear to my heart. Yes, Jim, my door is blocked. I will talk about that here in just a minute. All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. Let's talk about that. So why is the door blocked? Well, I did a little bit of shopping, and no, this is not for any of us here at this house. I went shopping for Toys for Tots. So, for those of you who are not aware of what Toys for Tots is, that is through the Marine Corps Reserve. They do have a foundation, Toys for Tots Foundation, and those gifts then go to those families who are unable to provide gifts for children. So, here in this area, they take them for 0 to age 17. So these are going to be going into the bin, the Toys for Tots bin. So if you see any of those, or you're out and about doing some Cyber Monday shopping, be sure to pick something up. You can always drop it there. If Toys for Tots isn't your thing, Salvation Army always has bins out there also. Christine, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. Just a little bit of information. I know most of you have joined me, been here since day one. So you kind of understand that what we have, every veteran has a different story. A lot of our veterans are auxiliary, if you will. They haven't necessarily been in combat. They have been in very strategic positions that help those who are in combat, be it communications, be it distilling water, any of those kinds of things. So I'm hoping that, everybody understands that. And that leads me into my next guest, very near and dear to my heart. This is going to be my brother, Perry, and he is a Navy veteran. So if you would please give him a great warm welcome. Hi, brother mine. Thanks so much for joining. I'm doing great. A head cold, it's that time of year. Kind of happens
Yep.
all the time. And I think it's worse here in Tennessee with the allergies kind of stacked on top of that. So if everybody hears the difference in tone in my voice, I apologize. I know it sounds kind of funny. So, um,
Well, I feel your pain, and so the good news is that they don't know my voice, so they don't know that I don't normally sound nasally, right?
right, right. And yeah, the head cold, they're just horrible. So, let's see. So we've got several people out there right now. We've got 8 viewing. Thank you all for joining. Oh, so Jim is getting 4 pickleball paddles. That's funny. He says he's getting 4 pickleball paddles to get the Hagstroms on the court. Oh gosh, you want to see me fall over? Okay, all right. And Jason, he loves dill pickles. I'm not sure where that came from.
So do I, Jason.
Dill pickles are really good. What's your favorite dill pickle, Perry?
The green ones.
Okay, Klaus. What are those? Clausen or
Oh,
Vlasic?
uh, Vlasic, Clausen. I mean, I don't know. As long as
You
they're
know, is they're
yeah,
green.
yeah, as long as they're green, right? Well, my favorite. Thank you. My favorite dill pickle, honestly, was from a place called Tony's down on First Street in Reno, um, and this was back, geez, in the '70s. And you would go in and get a sandwich there, and he had one of the old what they call the pickle barrels. And so when you walked in there, there was this big 50-gallon pickle barrel made of wood, and you would have to dig down into that thing that was full of pickle juice, and you'd grab out a big monster dill pickle.
Oh my gosh. I have to say now I'm a huge fan of Clausen pickles. Those are the ones, we grew up with, right? In the refrigerated section with lots of garlic, really crunchy. But I was introduced by friends of mine, friends of ours, um, to what's called the best pickles, and those are made in Texas. Um, and I have to say, so I make a dill pickle bacon chowder soup, right? And those suckers stay nice and crispy in that soup. It's amazing.
Wow. I, I,
Ron
I,
Wayne says, "Thank you for your service and sacrifice."
thanks, Ron.
And of course, your
Hello, my brother. I'm not sure if we lost my sister. Patty.
Power's out.
Oh, your power went out. I think I'm still online here.
I think you are. When go, you can still talk. You should still be live.
I think I am.
So we can do this a little differently. So you could go ahead. I don't know if you can turn your volume up for the speaker.
Yeah, I mean, my volume's up. I'm not sure if people can
Maybe
hear
you can put
you.
it next to the microphone or somewhere near.
Yes, you're still up and live.
Okay, and I don't know, can if you go out there, can you hear Carolee?
Yes.
So I think everybody
Hello,
can.
hello.
Yes. I can see and hear you. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, hey, we'll just try to keep rolling here if we can.
Yeah, I mean, so I can. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah, my wife is watching Ruth, and she said she can hear you all right.
Perfect. Okay, so that's good news. So we're going to be a little unconventional. I guess that's fair, right? That's kind of how we are.
Right. Hey, go with what you got. Ron Wayne just gave us a thumbs up.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to be following along on my cell phone. I'm not going to be able to. I can see all the chats, so feel free to put that, put your chats out there. I just can't get them out online. But Perry, can you see the chat?
I can. So JC,
you can or cannot?
No, I can see them. Yes, as they're coming through.
Perfect. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and just keep rolling. So let me start by asking you, Perry. Tell me, okay, I know who you are, obviously. We're related, and you're like much older than I am.
Hey.
So I just had to throw that out there. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your childhood and education and such? Killian, welcome. I'm on the phone too. Our power's
out. Yeah, sure. So, well, I guess, just to kind of give you a little bit of a start. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where, my mom and dad grew up together, met, and where I was born. I did have a brother. My brother, his name was Paul. Paul passed when he was 6 months. I believe back and I was born in 1961. So I believe back in the 60s, my brother Paul passed when he was like 6 months. And I think back then they called it SIDS. If in sudden infant death syndrome or something like that. And so he passed when he was about 6 months. And I believe that he's buried back in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't honestly remember any of that. So I mean, other than the fact that I lost a brother. I don't really have any kind of real memories of that kind of whole situation. My dad also had a sister whose name was Carolee, and I believe that's how you got your name, sis.
great name.
Yeah, kind of a great name. And my dad's sister was also died at an early age after she had a couple of boys. And I think the combination of both of those types of things kind of really kind of had maybe a bit of an adverse effect on both my mom and my dad. And so they packed me up and moved out to California. They went west. And I think my first memories as a child were when I was probably 4 or 5. And I remember I just kind of remember some of the things about, my grandmother, grandfather, coming out to visit. My mom, my dad. My dad went to work for a radio station out there in Santa Rosa, California. I believe it was an old rock and roll radio station called KPLS. I believe it was an AM radio station that he worked for. And so, um, I just remember kind of having this childhood that was really nothing really bad happened at that point. Um, I believe I was probably 5-ish, maybe, and I believe that may have been when my mom and dad decided to get a divorce, and so they kind of went their separate ways. Dad went off and kind of went into the continued in the radio business for years, all the way up through when you guys were born here in the Reno area. I went and lived with my mom, and dad obviously had visitation rights and things like that, and so I'd kind of go spend summers with dad, and then the rest of the time I'd be with my mom. Um, I had a stepdad. Stepdad was not the nicest guy in the world, um, and I felt that at the back of my rear end several times. Um, And so, I just remember kind of growing up through that time period and moving around a lot. And then my mom got with my stepdad, kind of got connected up into um, the Haight Ashbury hippie thing that was going on back in the 60s in and around that San Francisco area. So I remember living in San Francisco for a while, going to a public school there. I remember one of the most vivid memories I have was when I was in um, kindergarten, of all things, and I remember hearing this woman yelling every curse word you could think of coming down the hallway of the school, and we were all sitting in class and and doing whatever it was we were doing. And I think we were all kind of looking around at each other like, what is all that noise and who's yelling and screaming? And all of a sudden this woman comes barging into our classroom and said, "Come on, son, let's go." And come over, grabbed me by the hand and took me out of school and basically looked at me and said, "We're never coming back here again." And off we went. She was right. We didn't go back. Well, the reason that I was taken out of the school was because apparently I hadn't had a bath in a while. My hair was kind of growing out all over the place, and I don't think I'd changed clothes in maybe a few days. So, think about back in the '60s and the hippies and those kinds of things that were going on, and so it was just kind of yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And my mom, was having none of that, and she was certainly not going to turn around and have a school turn around and tell her, how to raise her kid. So, I remember moving around to a lot of different schools when I was younger, and I remember going. Having a lot of different friends. We'd go out during the week and we'd go down to these little pizza parlors, I believe, that were in the Haight district. And I'd go around from table to table to table playing checks and checkers with, the patrons there. And mom and dad be sitting at the table. And, I was just kind of a young kid, flying around all over the place. And, like you would think back in the early 60s, it was, drugs, rock and roll, and free love and all that kind of stuff that was going on. I have some other, memories of just some things that were kind of, probably not really the greatest situation to be in. Some abusive types of things, from my stepdad. Just an interesting kind of life. And then I remember, like I said, I would go and see my dad, during the summer months. Well, he had finally moved up to the Portland area, and I went up there one year. I was 8 years old, and I went up to visit him in uh, Portland, Beaverton, Oregon was where they lived at that point. And my dad had gotten remarried by that time. Um, so, it was kind of one of those things where I was up there. I think my dad had found out through like a private investigator or something that, my mom was not living the greatest life, and raising her kid in a, not a good situation. And so my dad was able to basically um, get custody of me when I was 8 um, in the state of Oregon, while my mom still had custody of me in the state of California. And so for a long period of time, um, we did not go, and I don't, we really didn't go back into California a whole lot because of those types of situations. So I
Right.
just kind of remember growing up through that, and I do remember, for a while there, we lived in the Beaverton, Portland area, and then we moved down here to Reno, um, and I believe you were born in Reno, if I remember correctly, um,
No,
or were you born up in
no,
Portland?
I was born in Oregon.
Okay, so you see part of these things I don't remember. I'm getting too old. But I remember the boys were both brothers. Boys were born up there. So then you were born up there. So that must have been that Ellen and Fred
I
was
was
down here.
I think I was right about a year old, is my understanding, when we moved to Reno.
Right. Okay. Um, so Dad was in the radio business, and he did sales and things like that. And we moved down here, and the other thing that kind of came to fruition on this, and I think you might have remembered this a little bit, and that was, when my mom became, kind of got into the whole hippie movement. She also became born again, and so she led a Christian life, which is kind of odd to think of, but she did from way back then, and she was brought up in the Jewish faith, and then she turned around and was became born again through the hippie movement, which there was a lot of that going on, and had me baptized when I was probably 5 or 6 or something like that in the Lutheran church. And so
I
part of
never knew that.
yeah, yeah. Um, so she had me baptized, and of course, she thought of me as kind of that Christian little kid, now not so much as the Jewish boy. And when Dad got a hold of me, and Grandpa and Grandma and everybody, they were like having none of that. So that was one of the things that when we moved down here, I think I was like 13, I was 12, 13, and they put me through a crash course to get me bar mitzvahed and back into the Jewish faith and all that kind of fun stuff. Um, and I know none of the other boys or you guys went through any of that, but that was like Grandpa's like dying demand, to make sure that I became that I had my bar mitzvah. So
Yeah, and he was Orthodox.
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was a little more stringent regarding those kinds of things, and told Dad, "You're going to do this," and so that's what happened. After that, though, honestly, I mean, I kind of pretty much dropped all faith whatsoever, and until a long time later, and I started doing some things back then that probably a lot of people were doing, maybe not all, and probably shouldn't have done, and was doing some drugs and drinking a little bit and those kinds of things, and you know, I guess back then it wasn't really. Um, it didn't consume me like it did, I think, probably in later years where, it became more of a bigger deal. Um, but that took me in a lot of different directions. And, I worked in the restaurant business for a lot of years. And I think you guys probably remember that.
Yep.
And went back up to the Portland and Washington area for a while with a restaurant company I worked for. And, um, a lot of different things that kind of came as a result of that. I finally kind of came to the realization that you know they talk about chefs and guys that work in kitchens that they like to drink a lot, and well, that was kind of what happened to me a bit. Um, and so I kind of led that life for a while until I was probably late 28 to 29 years old. Um, Dad, I called him up um, one day, and this was in between Christmas and New Year's, and I'd quit my job, and um, I don't know what I was thinking, quite
Right.
honestly, or I maybe I wasn't. I'm pretty sure I wasn't, but probably one of the lowest times in my life was, I was 28, 29 years old, and I'd quit my job. I was living in, a flop house kind of place up in the Portland area. I'd pretty much lost everything at that point in time in my life, and called up my dad, in between Christmas and New Year's, and I was like, "I'm done. I need some help. Can you get me out of here?" And at that point in time, um, Uncle Rich, who'd married, one of our aunts, um, him and my dad basically drove up.
And me.
Huh?
And me.
Oh, did you come up for that too?
Yes, I did.
See, I don't remember that at all. So you have that on me, because all I remember was they showed up in a van, and uh, I turned around and grabbed some clothes. I think you threw me in the back of the van, and I think I slept all the way back. And they dropped me off at St. Mary's Hospital and said, "We'll see you in a few weeks." And
Yeah. Yep.
and that was it. So that was like 29 years old, I think. And
26.
yeah, and I had just I was it. I was done. Of course, then I had to figure out, I mean, I got cleaned up, and I turned around, and I went into I got out of there, and I remember trying to figure out what it was I was going to do. And I think one of the first jobs I got was I was helping to open up a Denny's restaurant, and the uh, the owners there of this Denny's, they were like, "Hey, you're really good at what you do. You want to help us run this thing?" And I worked there like less than a couple of weeks. And I walked in one day and I just said, "I can't do this anymore." And I quit. And I said, "I got to find something else to do," because I'd been in restaurants since I was 13 years old, and working in the back of the house. And I said I was done. And so that was really kind of an eye opener to me, because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't know if I had any transferable skills or anything, quite honestly. And so I I remember um, I remember Dad came up to me one day and he said, "Well, you need to work, because here's the rules while you're living at the house." And of course, here I am living at the house. I'm 29, going, this will be interesting. Um, so I turned around and uh, I said, "Well, what do you got in mind?" And Dad said, "Well, look, it ain't the greatest thing in the world, but he goes, I can get you a job cleaning up at the radio station." And I'm like, "I'll take it." And so, that's where I started to learn parts that of my life that today, kind of mean a whole lot. And one of them was humility. Um, and so, I remember, going into, the radio station at, overnight. And I remember, cleaning up all kinds of just disgusting, gross stuff. I mean, I don't know if anybody on that's listening has ever been around a radio station, back in the day when there was a lot of things going on. And it, it's just it's just the grossest stuff you could ever think of.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, they put on a long record, because you're in the overnight, and who's listening and all that kind of stuff. They put on a long record, and then they'd go out back and they'd want to start smoking a joint or something like that. And they're like, "Hey, you want to come with us?" And I was like, "No, get away from me. Don't even come near me with that stuff." And so I just I turned around and I did that for I think a few months, um, and did some cleaning up around there. And I learned that you know what, um, you have to go through things in order to turn around and be able to move forward. And that was one of the things I had to go through. And I had to learn some humility, and I had to learn that no matter what you do, you can have a purpose in life. And that's kind of how things started to change for me. So I got into some other jobs. And one of the things I got into is I remember getting one of my first really good jobs that kind of led me to where I am today. And I walked into the interview, and the local guys here was a hardware store that these guys owned, and here in the Reno area, and and the owners turned around and they said, uh, uh, Perry, why is it that you think you can do this job? And the job was marketing. That's what they called it, but it was basically uh, changing the end caps on the in the store. I was a hardware store, so on these end caps, you would turn around and put the product on it. And my job was to go in and change it all out, and that's how the job started. And they're like, well, what qualifies you to do this? And I said, well, and this is the only thing I could think of at the time. I said, if you make a plate of food and it's the most beautiful plate of food you've ever seen, whether it tastes good or not, you're going to love it. If it's a plate of food and it looks like somebody just slapped it all onto the plate and it's the most, it's horrid looking, then it will taste bad no matter what.
You eat
And
with your eyes.
right. And they both just kind of looked at me and they said, "You're hired."
Nice.
And so that was the hardware store that I went to work for, and I worked for them for a little bit of time, which 5 years I think it was. That's where I met my wife Ruth, and that's also where I turned around and decided to join the Navy. It was kind of one of those things where I get home. I'd gotten married. We'd been married a year or two, and I got home one night, and there was this postcard in the mail. And this was probably the mid mid '90s, I think. Um, and I was probably 30, she's 31, 32. Um, and I get
Much
this,
older than me.
yeah, and much older than I think you should ever be wanting to go into the military.
There's that.
There's that. Um, so I get this postcard in the mail, and the postcard was really, really interesting because it said, "Navy, join the Navy, advanced pay grade. Take your experience that you've got in the public sector and bring it to the Navy today, and we'll bring you in, and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. Um, so I don't know why, but I remember going in talking to my wife, and I said, "Hey, I think I want to do this." Um, and she was like, "Well, okay, why?" And I said, "Well, be a little extra income." And I said, when I was in high school, I was in ROTC, and I was not a good student. I mean, I barely got out of high school, sis. And I don't know if you remember that or not, but
I think it runs in the family.
right? except for one, I think that I'm aware of. and and
Right.
and kudos,
Exactly. Except for one. I
right?
think, yeah.
And
I was the same though.
and kudos to him for as well as he's done. Um,
100%.
but I remember, I just remember turning around thinking to myself that one of the things that I really loved when I was in high school was I loved ROTC. I felt like I had a purpose there. I felt like you know um, there was something for me to do and accomplish, and I did well. I mean, I didn't do well in much of anything in high school. I did well in that. And so I said, I think I want to try this. I think I could do this. And so she said okay. And I remember making the phone call and went down, took some tests, and they turned around and came back and said, hey, you're in. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. and you're in. We're gonna turn around and we're gonna put you in a unit. And here's where the recruiter talk comes in now. We're gonna put you in a unit you're gonna love in the Navy. And at that time, I was working still in the hardware business, with commercial hardware, and the guys that I went to work for, and they're like, we're gonna put you in as a storekeeper. I think they call them right. I think they call them logistics specialists now, but back then we were storekeepers. Okay, and you know, I remember them turning around and saying, the nice thing about the unit we're going to put you in is that you're never going to need to go on a ship. And I was like, oh, okay. And and I'm like sitting there going, wait a minute. I thought the Navy was all about ships. And they're like they're like, no, no, no. This is a construction battalion, and we're going to put you in with what we call a CB battalion. And I'm like, a CB battalion? What's a CB battalion? And they're like, they're a construction unit. And you're going to love it because you get to hang out with a bunch of guys, and you get to go build stuff, and it's right up your alley. And working in the hardware business, all about parts and stuff and things and hammers and power tools and that kind of stuff. So this will be
hammers.
right, right. So I'm like, okay. So I get sworn in, and the first thing they do is they send me off to a management school in New Orleans. So please don't hold this against me, everyone in the Navy,
No
right?
judgment.
Yeah, no judgment here. But I went to a management school they put me into down in New Orleans, across the river in a little place called Algiers. And one of the worst parts of New Orleans you can ever be in. I mean, we were down there for several weeks learning what the Navy was, um, history lessons, um, making our beds, doing drills, marching, going into doing the different types of things that from the standpoint of like learning how to run fire hose and those types of things like that for fire. We got soaking wet going through. I mean, just they put you in a, I don't even know how to explain it, but it was a training unit. And it was like being inside of a ship, and they basically turn the water on and you got to figure out how to stop the leak. And with the different tools that you had. So, and that was a long time ago, so keep in mind, I'm like 62 now. I don't remember half of this stuff anymore, but so they put me through weeks of this training, and then sent me back to the unit and said, okay, you're done. And I went back to my reserve unit, because that's what I did. I went in as a reservist, and I came in as I think an E4, when I came in. So petty officer third class is what I came in at, and they basically said, based on your private experience, this is what we're going to do with you. And I was like, okay. So I get back to the reserve base, and I go to there for my first report, and they outfitted me with, back then it was not, they weren't BDUs, but they were solid green, old kind of stuff they used to wear in like Vietnam days and things like that. And um, uh, so that's what I was in greens, and we turned around, and first thing they did was they gave me orders to go off for a 2-week exercise over in um, Fort Hunter Liggett, and they shipped us down to Port Hueneme, where we basically got all of our gear and equipment, and then loaded us up on buses and sent us up to Fort Hunter Liggett up by San Luis Obispo in California, and said, Here you go. And I remember getting off the bus at like, I don't know, it must have been midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And as I'm getting off the bus, they handed us Miles gear, an M16, and a cot, and said, "Go set up under the stars. We'll wake you up at dark 30."
Oh my goodness. And were
Okay.
you like, what in the world?
Well, pretty much, because I had no idea what I was, getting into. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, going, okay, well, this is interesting. But okay, we got this. I mean, follow directions. It's really not that hard, you know, follow directions, listen to the people that are, above you, and, they hopefully know what they're doing, follow directions. So there's like, a battalion consists of like 400 or 500, maybe 600. And I was at that point, I think I was attached to NMCB 3. I think it was. I landed and finished my military career with NMCB 18 at the time. It was out of Fort Lewis, Washington. Um, I think it's down. I don't even. I'm pretty sure they're still around. I think, but I think they're down south now. Um, so I I went out there. I got up the next morning. They loaded a bunch of us up, and we went and basically put up tents, big circus type tents. Put up other, like tents. The first thing that went up was the chow hall, and so we basically set up camp. And then our job was what we were learning was basically we were learning how to defend the camp. And the defense of the camp was, and this was something I found out later on, was that our area of operation, we found out, was Korea. And so
Really?
yeah, so they were teaching us combat in the Navy. They were teaching us ground combat in the Navy, preparing us to basically, defend and follow the Marines. And when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, excuse my, French, but oh crap, what did I just get myself into?" So, so yeah, I mean, what I came to find out is that, the group that I was involved with was basically, um, you know, we're there to follow the Marines everywhere the Marines go, and whatever the Marines, blow the heck out of. Our job was to go in, move forward with the Marines, behind them, repair anything that they messed up, and you know, defend the place, defend the land, so to speak. We weren't necessarily out there, on the front lines, but our job was to turn around and um, be the backstop, and not let them through, as a bunch of reservists. And so I did that for a lot of years. That's what my job was. Um, I got recalled then. So,
Wow.
that was interesting because they yanked me out of. This was back when Clinton was bombing Kosovo and Herzegovina.
Uh-huh.
Um, Late 90s, 1999. I think it was. They started. I think, geez, I'm thinking April, March, 1999. They started doing some bombing missions over there. I think it was, what is that, Milosevic and those guys. And so, you know, I got yanked out of my battalion because I was a supply type, and they yanked me out and threw me over in Sicily. Um, and I was over there for several months on active duty, and I was in supply, and my job was to count parts. They were launching U-2 missions out of NAS Sigonella, and I lived in outside of Catania, there on the island of Sicily, in a little town called Acitresa, and I spent several months there, um, and all I did was count parts,
Wow.
and then went back and counted the parts again, and then went back and counted the parts again. So I think I counted the parts at least 2 or 3 times for each section of parts that I was counting, and then we'd start all over again, that whole process.
Were your numbers the same the second time you counted them and the third time?
Never. Never. They were never the same. And I'm like sitting there going, how can the numbers like be off like that? And I mean, maybe they used them. I don't know. It was the weirdest thing ever. And I think they weren't necessarily looking for the numbers to always be the same. They were just trying to kind of come to we think we have this much.
Well, at least you didn't run out, right? Or
Right.
well, we hope you didn't run out.
We hope so. So I did that. I came back, went back into the unit. I did get a promotion when I was in. I took my test and went from an E4 to an E5. So I was that's what I stayed at until I got out.
So how long? Okay, so you had once told me not long ago a story about when you got recalled and you got over there on presidential orders.
Yep.
How did that play out?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I think I know where you're going. So
Yeah.
so we got, I mean, I got sent down to San Diego because that's where we shipped out of. And I spent a week and a half in San Diego as they were, checking us out, doing all the medical stuff that they had to turn around and do, and then get our flights and everything, and we flew commercial to get over there. So I think the bombing started sometime. I think, like I said, I think it was in March. I think for most folks, if they remember, the bombing stopped in June. And that was the day we landed on the island of Sicily.
Was the day the bombing stopped.
The day the bombing stopped. And so, there's like, I think on our orders going over there, I got to think there was probably 25 to 30 people that landed on the island at the same time that got off of that airplane, and they got us, put us on a bunch of vans, took us off to the command center, and walked us into command to report, handed in our orders, and the commander comes out and he's like, "What are you guys doing here? What are you doing here?" And we're like, "We're here to report for duty," and he's like, "Well, they stopped bombing, so you guys need to turn around and get out of here, go home." And we're like, "And how do we do that?" And then there was a master chief who came walking in from supply, who was part of the pickup and taking us in, and I guess him and the captain and a few others and the base commander went back and had a little meeting, and they came back and said, "Well, you know what we're going to do is this. We've got people that need to go on leave. We got people that need to transfer out. And since you guys are here, we'll let you stay for a while." So we're like, "Okay, fine." So they let us stay for a few months. However, it just seemed like it was always this constant, like, "Okay, prepare to go home this week." And then, "Nope, we're going to keep you another few weeks." "Okay, prepare to go home." "Nope, we're going to keep you for a few more weeks." And so this just went on and on and on and on and on. I mean, at one point, we got apartments off the base because there was not enough berthing on the base for us to actually stay there, and they didn't want the younger enlisted people out in the city. They wanted the older guys like me out in the city because they're like, "You guys are more responsible. You've been around the block a few times, and so
You're old. Right?
yeah." It basically, that's what it came down to. Is we were old, and they didn't think we were going to go out and cause a whole lot of ruckus like the younger guys were. So they let them stay on base and kept them locked up, so to speak, and they turned around and sent us out. So we had an apartment out in town, and we were there for, geez, I think I was there 5, 6 months, something like that, before they finally turned around and came back and said, "Okay, this is it. The president has turned around and said that and the legislators and stuff like that have basically said the funding stops." And so, we're like going, "Well, what does that mean?" And we were supposed to be there. The original orders were for us to be there up to a year. Okay. And so
Okay.
we turned around and got sent home, and they were like, "You got to get these guys out by the end of the month, otherwise they're not getting paid." And so then there was this mad rush to turn around and you know get everybody um, get everybody off the island, get them back to San Diego or wherever they came from, and off of active duty, so that they could not have to worry about how they're going to handle our pay or not handle our pay. And
Right.
so yeah, that was kind of that story. But it was an interesting time. I'm glad I did it. Um, I would, nothing about what I did in the military would I ever change. Um, my duty, unlike some, um, I had a great time in the military. I enjoyed the military. It was one of the best things I think I ever did for myself, just as a human being. The camaraderie that I had with the people that I served with um, was, I mean, it was amazing.
So are you in contact with any of the people you served with still?
Um, a little bit here and there. I mean, there's several guys that I see on Facebook, every now and then, and we communicate that way a little bit. There's been a few guys that since I've been out that I've seen on a personal basis, and we run into each other because a lot of the guys that were in my unit here in Reno, Nevada, they're still around, and so I bump into them every now and then out, running around. I know a couple of guys that are still in. They've done really well. A couple of them, that went on to make chief, senior master chief, and so on. And they're doing really good. But yeah, I still kind of touch base with them now and then, and and just and it's not like we're not again, we're not like going out and having breakfast or anything like that, but um, we had a good time. I I think for myself, one of the things that I've always struggled with, from the standpoint of my time in the military, was how it ended. Okay, and I just saw that Fallon, Nevada. Yeah, I used to drill out there on the weekends. Um, uh, they wouldn't let us do anything out there, even though we could do we could do a lot of different work because we were in construction, and that's what we did. But because they wouldn't let the CBs do anything on local bases in the states, was my understanding. So we had to go find projects outside of the base because the contractors didn't like us working on their projects on the base. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
It does. I mean, I get it. I do. I get it. Um, Although it would have been nice if we could have come alongside each other and worked together. I mean, that would have been great experience for us. Being in the CBs, and it would have been great for them because it's like hey, we got some free labor. But hey,
Right.
that's okay too. I understand it. But I think one of the things that I guess probably one of the struggles that I had, and I know that I didn't serve in combat, okay, um, and I didn't have to go through a lot of the things that I know a few of your guests have had to go through, and some of those kinds of things. And so, thank you to them for being that front line and being out there and doing what they did, because um, I can't even imagine what that would be like. And
Right.
so you know and me going in, I mean, geez, I was 31, I think it was. 31, 32, something like that, I think, when I went in. Um, I was an old man when I went in, you know.
Well,
Um,
you'll always be older than me.
right?
But, to be fair, the fact that you volunteered, you did serve, even if you had served your entire time stateside, still the fact of the matter is you put yourself out there, you sacrifice time with family and friends and things of that nature. So, thank you very much for your service. And I'm sure everybody in the chat and watching agrees. It doesn't matter whether you were combat or not. That's not what it's all about. I mean,
I know.
it's being ready, of course, if the call comes. So certainly we thank you for that. So when you got out, did you utilize any resources, or did you have any specific resources that you were aware of that you looked into?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I did not take advantage of up until just recently was I did not take advantage of my VA medical benefit that I had, and I just always felt like uh, I didn't need that. I wasn't a combat vet. I didn't have a real uh, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, that's for people that need that service. And so I remember one time going to uh, I went to a county fair over in California, and I got my kids, my wife, and we're walking around. And I remember stopping by one of those DAV, disabled American vets, I think it is. Um, and I walked by one of those, and I walked up, and I was just talking to the guy there, and we were talking about the medical benefit, and he turned around and he explained it to me very clearly, and he explained it to me very well, and he said, look, the VA medical benefit, okay, is there for all vets, and it is a benefit, and we need more people to be involved in that benefit in order for there to be for us to be able to get the funding and the things that we need for other veterans that do need those services, and that type of thing. So and I know not all vets have had a great relationship with the VA, and there's been certainly some bad VA medical centers out there. But I mean,
Right.
what I did was, and again, this was only just a couple of years ago. I'm like I said, I'm 62 now, and I've been out since I was like in my early 40s. But I signed up for the medical benefit. I'm the lowest tier on the level that you can get, but I have eligibility, and I've used the benefit. Um, in my mind, at least, having personal insurance through my job and through my work, I can tell you that every time I went to go see a local doctor first, I never actually saw the doctor, and I'm not taking away from the nurse practitioners. All people in the medical field are needed, and have a purpose and do a great job, and we don't have enough of them.
Agreed.
But once in a while, you need to see the doctor, okay? And so for me, um, I hadn't seen a doctor, an actual doctor, in like almost 10 years.
Oh,
And
goodness.
so I turned around and I signed up for my benefit, and I scheduled an appointment. It took me 6 months to get in. Okay. But
Okay.
but once I got in, I kind of expected, the same thing. And I remember the first appointment that I had, I walked in and I sat down with an actual doctor, and he talked to me for like an hour, and he
Oh,
wanted
wow.
and he wanted to know everything that was going on with me. He wanted a full history. So for me, the medical benefit has been actually a very good thing, because I've actually had some things taken care of that I didn't know that I needed to have taken care of. So
Oh, that's great.
that's one benefit. The other benefit, and this is one that I personally took part in, because one of the careers that I went into was I was in the mortgage lending business for almost 20 years. And I got into that when I was in the military. And so um, I was a regional manager, I was a local manager, senior loan officer. So I'm very familiar with the VA home loan benefit that is out there. And I pushed that. I was also a part of an organization called VA Rep, which is the you don't have a chapter in Tennessee. I looked it up. I think there's chapter in like Georgia and some of those places, but it's the Veterans Association for Real Estate Professionals. And what they do is they go out and they help veterans with financial education, understanding things like their credit, and understanding the benefit that they have with home loans, because that's not again, the home loan benefit for veterans, that's not a a thing to turn around and take lightly.
Right.
I've used it. I will continue to use it. You can use it more than once. Um, like anything that you get from the federal government, though, any benefit where they give you money or cash, always remember the one thing, and that's pay it back. Otherwise, it becomes a problem. Um,
Right.
but the VA home loan benefit is something that, for me, is like one of the best things that a vet's got out there, because you can finance 100% of the house, and there's really no limit now on how much home you can buy. I've helped vets turn around and buy $1 million homes over the years that took out very small loans and had a lot of money that they'd had put away and saved, and so um, good stuff there. So I mean, there's a lot of really good benefits out there that the military provides for, insurance and those types of things. So I try to tell all vets, take advantage. SkillBridge is another one that I wanted to. I've talked a lot about with uh, in the job that I do now, because I work in government now, not in the mortgage business anymore. I work in government, and one of the things that we have access to is a thing that the Department of Defense puts out. It's called SkillBridge, and SkillBridge is for, well, not vets yet, but it's for um, active duty service members that are in the last 6 months of um, their tour. Okay,
Hmm.
and what they can do is they can go start an internship that the Department of Defense will pay for, to get them into and learn a trade, learn a job, so to speak, depending on what they want to get into. Um,
That's
and uh,
awesome.
and then once they go through that 6 months and they get that, they learn that trade, so to speak, they have the opportunity to potentially go full time with the company or the agency that they're working with. Um, in the job that I'm in, we've put several people through the Skill Bridge program, and several of those people that are now veterans that are out of service have actually gone to work for the government in different types of jobs through that program. So Skill Bridge is another thing I think that's a really great benefit to help get people moving in the right direction, especially veterans. Getting jobs, keeping them employed. I mean, to me, that's one of the biggest I think concerns and issues is helping them out and getting them moving forward. And the
Yeah,
other
that's a
thing is just
great resource. Now,
um,
is that something that's nationwide or is that
I,
just
I
Nevada?
believe I believe it is. Yeah, I believe
Okay.
it's a nationwide program. The other thing I would just tell you and tell your vets is, look into what the states are what your state is offering from the standpoint of benefits through the local government. Like for state of Nevada, we have a veterans administration through the state, and so I would try to tell all vets to look at some of their local, and not all states are as um, helpful as maybe others would be. Just putting that out there.
Right.
Um, But there are some states, like I know in the state of Nevada, we have a very good Veterans Administration here for the state, and they're constantly trying to help people move in the right direction. But I know one of the things that they passed a law here recently in the state of Nevada that if you come to work for the state and you need to do medical stuff, because usually when you first go to work for a company, um, and if you're in the military and you've come out of active duty and you've been in some kind of a situation where you need medical attention, a lot of times you don't get a whole lot of time off, especially if you're starting a job. Okay.
Right.
So the one thing I would just tell your people that are listening is to look into their state to see if there is anything in their state law that will allow for veterans to take time off, paid time off, in different types of jobs and different types of positions that will allow them to get some of the medical care that they need while still getting paid and still being able to hold down the job and keep the job. So I know the state just recently, we've been trying to get that passed here in Nevada for 4 years, and we just finally got that through. So our Veterans Administration did a fantastic job of finally getting that pushed through. So you can go to work for the state in Nevada, and you can, as a state employee, you can get up to like 96 hours of time off in your first year for medical purposes, not other things, but for medical purposes.
96 hours doesn't sound like a lot of time, but in the big scheme of things, it really is, because it gives them time to locate doctors. It gives them time to try and come up with, other resources. Maybe certain doctors maybe might be open or available on a weekend, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So, that's huge. And I'm really happy to hear that Nevada has become very veteran forward.
There's certainly a lot of room to improve. I remember a few years back, I was at a veterans parade, and I remember this gentleman walked up to us, and he was from a state. It will remain nameless, but it's west of us.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
and he said, I walked, we were talking, and I asked him, I asked him, I said, how you doing? He goes, you know what? I'm doing good now. He said, it's great being in a state that loves their vets. It's great being in a state where you feel like you're appreciated. You're not afraid to walk down the street with a military hat on or a military shirt on. It's great to be in a state where you can feel like you're home.
That's huge.
Yeah. So that was a good thing to hear. And our governor back then, just like our current governor, is very I think pro I don't want to necessarily say pro military, but pro veteran services. We need to take care of our vets. We need to take care of our people, first responders, even active duty,
right?
Those kinds of people. So all that kind of stuff, and we're still working on some things. That we're having, that we're not quite there yet. Especially for like active duty folks that are coming in and transferring around, and people that need to be able to, their spouses that need to go to work. Sometimes that can be a struggle. So
right, yeah. And things do take time. It's got to go through the process. I have the patience of a gnat. I think I got that from Grandma.
Me too.
But,
right.
You think because it makes perfect sense. It's common sense that it should be like already set up. But things take time. They've got to go through the pipeline and get all the approvals and written properly, et cetera, et cetera. So I get it, and I'm really glad, like I said, to hear though that Nevada is on the right path, and just like every state has room for improvement. And so, that's part of this show is putting out those resources. So, if you don't mind, because as I said, our power is still out. So, I know, very important. If you could go ahead and you can send me a text with both of those for the state, those resources, and I will go ahead and get them put out on the site
Sure.
for anybody watching who is a veteran in Nevada needing some additional information.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think what I'll do is I'll give you the link to the. I'll go check the website again, but I'll give you the link to the State Department of Veterans Affairs, because usually, if I remember correctly, a lot of the things that I've talked about are listed in there too, and so I'll take a look at that, but I'll definitely get you connected with the right people. So.
Yeah, that would be great. So here you are now, married. You've got grown children that are married, and
Yep.
they're moved on. So what do you see, kind of the next step or for you?
Well, I have 3 children. Well, kind of 4, I guess. I have 2 daughters, or three daughters. One's kind of she's I'm not sure what they call that, a grafted daughter. She came to us late in life, through one of our daughters, and we just kind of unofficially adopted her.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
so Sierra's my oldest daughter, and and she's married, and then Haley is my younger daughter, and she's married. She lives up in Spokane. Sierra still lives here in the area, and then we have Anastasia, and she's the grafted daughter, and she's married and lives in the area as well. And then I have a son who is also adopted, but his name is Caleb. He's 14. We got him when he was a day old, and he's never left. He's been here, and he's a great kid. He's going to be
getting big too, tall.
Yeah, he's about as tall as I am now, but I think he's going to be a 6-footer easily, if not a little taller than that.
Nice. Then he can reach all the stuff for the shorties off the top shelf.
Right. I like I said, I currently work for the government, and my plan right now is to try to get another 8 years in, and get to 70, and look to retire. I love my work now. I pinch myself every day, quite honestly, because if I turn around and I go back and I look at my past, um, I'm a firm believer that I don't deserve any of this. I don't deserve the things that I have. It's only through the grace of God that I have any of it. And so,
I think a lot has to do with the fact that mentally wanting to turn yourself around and putting that first foot forward. So really, when you're willing to change and go the right direction, everything's open to you.
Yeah.
And the fact that you've done that, and you've succeeded. I can kind of say the same for me, where you look at life and you're like, you're scared to move forward, but when you do, it's like everything just kind of opens up for you. You find a family, you find somebody that loves you, and you love them, and things just kind of bloom. Just in general.
Yeah.
And you work your way to those. So, don't necessarily say that you don't deserve where you're at, because you've worked hard, both mentally primarily, to get where you are today in life. So just remember that and keep that in the back of your mind. That's my personal opinion, for what it's worth.
Yeah. And thank you for that. No, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I think my part of this is that it's one of those things where, from my standpoint, it's like, I remember just going back and looking at, kind of um, how I've gotten here. I have to pinch myself every now and then just to kind of say, you know, I didn't go to college. I don't have a degree. I don't have I mean, I barely got out of high school. Yeah, it is hard work, but again, I'm a man of faith, and I believe that from my standpoint at least, is that uh, it's it's only because of my ability to turn around and trust in trust in a God that's going to take care of things, take care of my family, and He'll take care of me. And I just try to keep pushing along and pushing forward, putting one foot in front of the other, and do the best I can. I'm not perfect by any means, but I have been very very grateful for all the opportunities that have been put in front of me. I've known some very good people that have really helped me along the way, and seen in me things that I didn't see in myself. Um, and I think that's one thing that's important for all of us, because I do that now myself, where it's like, I look for those opportunities to turn around and try to say, hey, I see something in you that maybe you don't see in yourself, and I think you can do this. So
Right.
let's give it a try. Because of the opportunities that I've been given. So I try to do the same thing now. So but
Which is
sure.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of throw this out there. This was actually put to me, and I might have said this on some previous shows, but for anybody listening, any veterans that may be listening, somebody told me, actually, when I was at the Mind Overland retreat in North Carolina a couple weeks back over Veterans Day weekend, um, that when you go into the military, you are signing a contract, and that contract is not just one-sided. A contract is two-sided, right?
Yeah.
And so with that comes, you know, when you do retire, when you do leave the military, whatever the case may be, you then also have the right to, well, I guess I should say the government now has their time to make sure to follow through with their end of the contract, to make sure that your medical is taken care of, that
Right.
that everything is going well, to try and put you back as close to as what you were when you went in.
Yep. Yep.
And,
Absolutely.
and so that's just something to kind of keep in mind. When I know that there's, you're not the only one, Perry, that I've obviously talked to that say the same thing, that they don't want to take advantage of the VA benefits, because they don't feel that they deserve them or they need them or whatever the case may be. However, it is a two-sided contract. I mean, you signed a contract to do a specific job. You do that job, and now the binding part of this is they need to make sure that they follow through with their end of that bargain, and
Correct.
continue to take care of anything that needs taken care of. So just kind of throwing that out there, for anybody listening.
And I think one of the things that people should know is that um, the the benefits that a veteran has, um, in many cases, it's not a I mean, certainly if you're going to get a VA loan, you have to qualify for it, but it's still yours, okay?
Right.
And you can't lose it unless you give it away, you know? Um, it's the same thing with and this was something that I didn't really quite understand until I, took advantage of it, and that was the VA, health benefit. Um, I thought it was insurance. The VA health benefit is not insurance. Okay, it is a benefit, and I didn't really kind of grasp that. I think until I got it, and that's how it was explained to me. They were like, "This isn't an insurance company, okay? This is a benefit that you get that's available to you once you're qualified to take part in it. And these are the fees, and these are the costs and the things that and I pay. I mean, I pay for that benefit where I know many don't, and they rightly shouldn't have to. Okay, me on the other hand." Uh, I'm not a disabled vet, okay?
Right.
And therefore, because I, don't qualify at that particular level, I should pay, okay? And I have no
To help
problem.
offset the cost
Correct,
for those who are disabled.
right? And I have no problem with it, but even then, it's still way better than most of the insurance programs that are out there. And
Right.
so, to me, that's one of the things that I turn around and I look at is, just again, being able to take advantage of what is out there, and there's other things that are out there that are benefits for veterans as well that they just need to take a look at, have somebody sit down with them and understand. I mean, even things like, well, I don't have a DD-214 anymore. Well, what do you mean? You got one when you left. Well, yeah, but I lost it. They can't find it. Trust me, depending on where you're at and in your state, I can't tell you. I've seen people that I know fight and battle with VA to get that DD-214 back. Okay.
Oh, geez.
All right, and make those, and it's a matter of finding the right people that can turn around and sometimes help you move forward with these things. But there's plenty of people out there that can help you depending on what you're trying to potentially accomplish. And the other side of that too is that there's also a lot of bad actors out there, and so
Right.
there are people that are out there claiming to be vets and they're not. So, it's just like anything, that we have in life. And that is that, you just have to be careful, do your due diligence, make sure you're looking, talking, asking questions, and, you'll get to where you need to be. Um, and that's the main thing. Sometimes it just takes a little push.
Right. And that's wonderful advice. That's great advice. I'm going to throw out there for everybody listening, if y'all have any questions for Perry, now's the time to put them out there. We're going to start wrapping up. So go ahead and get those in the chats for me. So I think we've pretty much touched on everything that I can think of. And just a little clarification, we're going to go back just a little bit. So to clarify, you did not go through boot camp. Is that correct? Or basic training?
I did not. Nope, I did not.
Okay.
That was part of the contract that I signed in what the Navy called the advanced pay grade. Was that I did not need to go through a boot camp. So, I don't have that in my resume. I can't say that I did that. I didn't hit Great Lakes or one of those places.
Right.
I went through what they call a management school, and that's what they put me through. Um, I alluded to that a bit earlier.
Right.
So, um, I had one other thing that I wanted to kind of I wanted to say because
Yeah.
and I remember this because it came up once in a conversation where a veteran had we awarded a home to a vet.
Oh, that's
And,
wonderful.
part of the organization that I was part of years ago, and there's a few of them I know of. There's several, like Tower to Tunnels and some of these different organizations that are out there where they turn around and they take care of mortgages for people and they award homes. The one that I was a part of, would build homes for people and repair homes and things like that. And one of the vets that we built a home for. Was not a combat vet, but he certainly was deserving, and through some of the other things that he did. And I got out of the military right after 9/11, and that was one of the most interesting things that I can remember. As part of my time, and that was 9/11 hit. My enlistment was up the end of December of that year.
Okay.
And so I remember walking into my last reserve weekend there, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, because they'd never said anything to me about my reenlistment through the whole last 6 months. I'm like, is anybody going to turn around and like ask me the question? You know?"
Right.
And so, I went downstairs to the personnel guys and I said, "So what are we doing here?" And they're like, "Well, do you want to reenlist or not?" And I said, "Well, can I re-up for, let's say, a couple of years?" And they're like, "Nope." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Your reenlistment is that if you want to continue on, you have to reenlist under contract for 8 more years."
Wow.
And I was like, "Seriously?" And they're like, "Correct. You have to reenlist for 8 more years." I said, "I just can't do that." I said, I'm not a young guy at that point, and I mean, I don't know. I'm like, look, I've done my active duty and some other things, and I don't know that I got 8 more years of enlistment in me. Doing this on weekends, and who knows what's going to happen. So I said, I'm willing to stick it out as long as you need me. Okay. And you're telling me that you don't want that. And they were like, we don't need a supply guy. We need, MPs and combat guys and blah 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 blah. And I said, well, I'm part of the CB battalion. I have combat skills, dingaling, you know. and uh, and so he's like, no, 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 doesn't work that way. And I said, well, I guess we're done then. And he's like, okay. And so that was it. That was my last weekend. And I was out. And I got to tell you, I mean, it's one of the things about the military, I think, and it's that camaraderie piece that for me, uh, I was just kind of like, I don't know that I felt really good about it, but I felt that I couldn't make, any other decision than that to be done. Okay.
Right.
And a year later, at the end of the next year, um, my battalion was sent over to Iraq, and we lost somebody over there.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But it's one of the things that I turn around and I think back on, and I just think to myself that you know um, I'm glad for the time that I was there. I'm glad for the time I served, and I don't have any regrets about it. JCL had a question here. Let's see.
Yeah, so he says that he had a friend that had gone to Desert Storm and his job wasn't there when he returned, which is against the law, or at least the agreement. So how was your situation with your employment when you came back?
Well, I was fortunate at the time. I was in the mortgage business when I got activated, and uh, the company I worked for at the time was Bank of America, and Bank of America knew that there was, I don't understand it. I don't know. All I know is that the bank turned around and said, hey, if with what's going on, if you're activated, we're in support of this. You can go, and when you come back, your job is still here. And I did, and I left, and when I got back, I still had a job to come back to. But you're right. That is illegal. And I guess the question kind of comes down to what kind of a job did the individual have? Was there a contract? Was there something in the contract that said, hey, if you're activated for some reason, and again, that's my government brain that is kind of coming out with things. It's like it's hard to turn around and say if you don't really know all of the situation. But out the get go, I would tell anybody that if you're called to active duty and you have to go fight for your country, your job should be there when you get back. Period.
Exactly. So, any other questions out there for Carrie? We made it up as high as I think 14 or 15 in the chats today, which is awesome. So thank you for that. I do want to throw out before I forget, because I'm really bad at remembering this. For those of you who are out there, make sure that you go out, you like and make a comment on this when it's done. Of course, it is going to be recorded for everybody to be able to watch it at their leisure. But I would really appreciate that, getting the word out. Carrie came up with some great resources, and then I'll be getting that information additionally and getting it put out there, some links as well for those who are in Nevada, as well as the one that is possibly national. So kind of keep an eye out for that. And Carrie, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Well, the only other thing that I would just say is thank you, sis. You two have come a long way over the years, and thank you for you've got great support in your husband Jason, and I'm so very proud of you, and in doing this, thank you for putting this all together and asking me to come take part in it. What an honor
Absolutely.
it is, and a privilege to be able to do that. And we're always here for you, and appreciate everything you're doing. And just thank you to all of our veterans out there that might be listening and might see this. And grateful for all of you and what you've done and your service to the country. And um, keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, exactly. Jim did ask if he had lived in Spokane multiple times. He said, "Have you ever gone and visited?"
I actually did go visit Spokane. My daughter and her husband moved up there earlier this year, and I went up to visit them here. I think it was probably March. I think of this year. I went up and spent a few days up there with them. Spokane's a beautiful little town. Yes, you're right. It's got a kind of a big city feel, and but it's a smaller town. Um, I love the river area. They actually have a river up there, unlike around here we have a creek. They call it a river, but it's a creek.
Wait, you said creek. Jason, I hope you're paying attention. It's a creek, not a crick.
Crick. Well, that all depends on what part of the country I think you're from.
I know. That's been an ongoing kind of thing.
Right.
So.
But yeah, it's beautiful up there. I love the trees and the countryside up there. It's really pretty. So, yeah.
Oh, Jova Q just posted.
Yeah.
There's
Soldiers,
protection under
sailors,
the soldiers and sailors. Can't read all of that because it's blocked on my phone.
Yep.
There's Soldiers and Sailors Civil Relief Act.
Yep, you are
So,
you are
and
correct.
that should give you some information there if you want to look into that. Thank you for that, Joviq. So, well, I think that about covers it. We're going to have, I've got another great show scheduled for 6 o'clock Central Time next Sunday. And another great show I am anticipating. He's a lively one, great sense of humor. Not to say you're not, Perry, because you are, and you do have a great sense of humor. This is just one that I I have met a couple weeks back over Veterans Day weekend, and he actually agreed this morning to come on next week. So I'm very happy and excited to have him come on. And then, as I said, make sure to share this, with people that you know. Tell them to subscribe. We are not quite at 100 subscribers yet. When we hit 100 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So be sure to get the word out. If you can, let them know we want to hit that 100 mark. That's just, the very first milestone. So just kind of put it out there. And I think that pretty much does it on my end. And yeah, so Jason, it is not a crick. Yeah, he says the creek flows through the hills, doors, and Flores Creek. Yeah. Yeah, this has been coming up 20-something years now, so, we've had this argument.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. All right.
And if this is the worst we argue over, that's excellent.
Right, right.
So again, I want to thank everybody for being patient with me as well. We're going to have to figure out the whole power thing. We've got some lights going, not candles, but little LEDs and stuff, so to get us through. So this actually worked out well. And again, thank you, Perry. Thank you, everybody out there. Again, be sure to like and comment when this video ends. So thank you again, Perry. Love you dearly, and hugs to everybody, okay?
All right. Love you too, sis. Take care.
All right, everybody. Y'all have a great night. Hopefully this will end. Because I don't have access to my computer, which is where I started this from. So
well, I'm gonna hit the leave studio when you say we're done, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we can go with that route. This will be interesting. So you guys might see a little bit of black, and I'll have to go back out later and edit this for get rid of all the dead air after the fact. But again, thanks everybody for joining. All right, Perry, we're out.
Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.